The galaxy had many forbidden zones, dead planets, collapsed civilizations, and cursed star systems where no one dared to travel. But Earth was different. It wasn't just forbidden. It was erased. There were no records of Earth's wars, no mentions of its people, no explanations of why it was avoided. The only thing that remained was a single line in the galactic archives. Class X Forbidden World. Do not approach. Do not investigate. Do not wake what sleeps beneath. For most of the galaxy, that was enough. But for Captain Vorgzan of the Dominion, it was an invitation. He stood at the bridge of his warship, the dagger's eye, staring at the lifeless blue and green planet on the main screen. "It doesn't look like a death world to me," he muttered. His second in command, Commander Yalrai, shifted uneasily. "Captain, every species that tried to investigate Earth has vanished. Entire fleets." Vorgzan scoffed. "Superstitions. If there was a great war here, there should be debris. If a virus wiped out the inhabitants, there should be remains. But Earth is untouched." He turned to his crew. "We are the Dominion. We do not fear myths. We conquer them." The dagger's eye descended, breaking through the planet's dead atmosphere. No defense satellites, no warning beacons, no life signs, yet the sensors flickered erratically, struggling to read the planet's surface. Then something unexpected happened. A signal crackled through the comms, ancient and weak, as if it had been repeating for thousands of years. "If you hear this, turn back. It sleeps beneath the surface. It is not dead. It is waiting." The crew exchanged nervous glances. Yalrai clenched her fists. "Captain, this is a mistake." But Vorgzan only smiled. "No, Commander. This is a mystery, and mysteries mean power." The landing team was prepared within minutes. Armored soldiers, scientists, and an elite scouting unit. They descended onto the planet in a dropship, cutting through the silent sky. When they landed, the silence was wrong. Earth's cities were still standing, untouched by time, as if the people had just vanished. Buildings weren't crumbling. Roads were clear. There were no corpses, no skeletons, no signs of war or disease. The air was breathable. The gravity was normal. Everything should have felt safe. But it didn't. As they stepped out, the ship's systems shut down. Weapons lost power. Communication devices fizzled. Even the soldiers' visors went dark. Then, in the distance, something moved. A shadow flickered between buildings. The air grew thick, heavy with something unseen. The Dominion soldiers raised their powerless rifles, breathing heavily. And then, just for a moment, they heard it. A whisper, carried by the wind. "You shouldn't be here." The Dominion soldiers stood frozen, their weapons useless, their technology failing them. Earth was not dead, but something here did not want them to leave. Captain Vorgzan's voice crackled through the emergency comms. "Report. What's happening down there?" Commander Yalrai, leading the ground team, forced herself to speak. "Sir, our systems are down. The city is untouched, but there are no signs of life. No bodies, no remains." She hesitated before adding, "We're not alone." The silence that followed was unnatural. Then, the whisper returned. "You shouldn't be here." The voice wasn't coming from a radio, nor was it a recorded message. It echoed in their minds, slipping through their thoughts like a ghost. One of the soldiers, a hardened veteran named Kral, growled, "This is some kind of mind attack. We need to fall back." But Yalrai's instincts screamed otherwise. The Dominion had conquered countless worlds, faced bioweapons, psychic entities, and ancient machines. This was different. This was something older. She signaled her team forward. "We need to find the source of that transmission." As they moved deeper into the city, they noticed something chilling. Shadows moved, but nothing was there. Buildings showed signs of recent use, open doors, footprints in the dust. Tables set for meals as if the people had only just left. And then they saw the writing. Across walls, streets, windows, scratched in a language older than any Dominion archive, were warnings. It sleeps beneath. Do not wake it. Run. A soldier named Jikas swallowed hard. Captain, this planet isn't abandoned. Yalrai turned sharply. Then where are the people? Jikas looked around and whispered, maybe they're still here, and we just can't see them. A deep hum pulsed through the air. The buildings shuddered, dust falling from their rooftops. The Dominion squad drew their powerless weapons, their bodies tense. Then the ground rumbled, as if something deep below was beginning to wake up. The ground trembled beneath their feet. A deep, rhythmic pulse resonated through the air, like the slow, steady breathing of something massive. The Dominion soldiers felt it in their bones, a vibration that bypassed their failing technology and reached into their very instincts. Yalrai gritted her teeth. This wasn't natural. The strange city stretched out before them, ancient yet untouched by time. The glass-like towers loomed over them, their surfaces shimmering as though trying to reflect images that weren't there. The silence was suffocating. Krall gripped his sidearm, though he knew it was useless without power. Commander, we need to go. Whatever this is, it's not meant to be found. Yalrai ignored him. We came for answers. If something survived here, we must. The whisper returned. You should not have come. It wasn't in their ears. It was inside their heads. Jikas dropped to one knee, his breathing ragged. I don't. He clutched his helmet. It's in my thoughts. I can hear it speaking. Another soldier, Erek, shuddered. I can hear it too. Yalrai tried to steady her nerves. Something was watching them, studying them. She activated her wrist recorder, a device that still worked because it had no wireless connection. Mission log. We have discovered an abandoned human city that should not be intact. There are no signs of life, yet we are experiencing anomalies, whispers, moving shadows. The ground is breathing. The ground beneath them shook again. Not a quake, something else. A rhythm, a pattern. Eric's eyes darted around. Commander, those buildings, they're changing. Yalrai turned, and her heart nearly stopped. The towering structures around them were shifting, slow, imperceptible movements, as if the buildings were alive. Walls stretched, windows disappeared. It was as if the city itself was watching them. Jikas let out a sharp breath. It's adapting. It knows we're here. Then, the whisper turned into a voice. You do not belong here. It wasn't one voice. It was many, layered, speaking in unison, filling the air like an invisible presence pressing against them. Then came the footsteps. Not one, not a few, thousands. They came from the streets, from the buildings, from the very shadows. Shapes formed, humanoid, but wrong. Their bodies flickered like broken holograms, as if they weren't fully here. And yet, the ground bore their weight. Their footsteps crushed the dust beneath them. They were real, but not alive. Erek took a step back. By the stars, one of the figures, tall and faceless, stepped forward. Its form was barely visible, shifting like mist in the wind. But its eyes, two voids of endless black, locked onto Yalrai. Turn back. Her breath hitched. What are you? The entity tilted its head. The shadows behind it moved in unison. We were the first. Jikas gasped. They're human. Yalrai's mind raced. That's impossible. No human civilization predates the Dominion. The shadow-like figures stood still, watching, waiting. Then the voice spoke again. The Dominion is young. We are old, older than your kind, older than your empire. Eric's hands trembled. Impossible. But then, the tallest figure stepped forward. The buildings trembled at its presence. It spoke in a voice that reached into their very souls. You did not listen. And now you have woken what sleeps beneath. The ground cracked open. A deep guttural roar erupted from below, shaking the air itself. Jikas screamed, "We need to get out of here." But the city had already begun closing around them. And below them, something was climbing up. The ground beneath them split apart with a thunderous crack, sending jagged fractures racing across the ancient streets. The towering structures of the city, once eerily still, now shifted like living things, their surfaces rippling as if reacting to the force awakening below. Yalray barely kept her footing as the tremors worsened. Jikas was not as lucky. He fell hard, barely catching himself before the ground beneath him collapsed into a black abyss. A sound unlike anything they had ever heard rumbled up from the depths. It wasn't just a roar. It wasn't just a quake. It was something alive, ancient, massive, and filled with malice. Krall grabbed Yalray's arm, his face twisted in terror. "Commander, we have to get out of here. Whatever's beneath us is waking up." But Yalray couldn't move. She was staring at the sky. It had changed. The swirling, cloudy atmosphere above was no longer dark. Instead, cracks of blinding white light flickered across it, like a shattered mirror struggling to hold itself together. And then they appeared. The shadow-like figures that had confronted them before were now everywhere, standing along the edges of the fractured streets, watching in perfect silence. Their black, formless bodies flickered and pulsed as though struggling to maintain shape, but their eyes, those horrifying voids of darkness, never wavered. They did not attack. They did not move. They only observed. Yalray forced herself to speak. What is this place?" The tallest shadow, the one that had spoken before, stepped forward. The moment its foot touched the broken ground, the entire city seemed to breathe. A deep, groaning exhale that sent chills through every Dominion soldier. Then the shadow answered. "This is where they were buried." A pause. "And you have set them free." The crack in the ground widened with a sickening lurch. Then it emerged. A colossal hand, clawed and covered in something that shimmered between metal and flesh, rose from the abyss. Its fingers, each the size of a warship, dug into the sides of the crumbling streets as it hauled itself upward. Jikas, his voice breaking, whispered, That's not possible." The creature kept rising. A skull-like head, alien yet strangely human, pulled itself free from the darkness. Its hollow eye sockets blazed with energy, and as its monstrous frame rose, the very air crackled with power. The city itself groaned as if trying to hold it down, but it was too late. The thing was awake. The Dominion soldiers ran. There was no fight to be had, no battle strategy that could prepare them for this. As Yalray sprinted, she activated her emergency beacon, praying that someone in orbit could hear them. A deafening boom echoed through the city. She looked back. The creature was fully free now. It was unlike anything ever recorded in Dominion history. Part machine, part something else. Its massive body was covered in scars of ancient war, its jagged armor fused with bone and technology. And at its center, deep within its hollow chest, a core of pure, pulsing energy throbbed like a dying star. Then it spoke, and the entire planet shook. "You who are Therese Paesirs." The voice was 1,000 voices, layered in distortion, echoing through the ruins like a judgment from the past. The shadow-like figures knelt. They were not the enemy. They were its servants. Krall shouted as they ran, "Commander, we need a ship now." Yalray gasped into her communicator. "This is Commander Yalray of the Dominion Expeditionary Force. This planet is not abandoned. I repeat, the planet is not abandoned. We need extraction, immediately." But no response came. Then, above them, the sky shattered. It was as if a veil had been ripped away, revealing a reality that had been hidden all along. And now, it had been unleashed. The true nightmare had only just begun. The ground still trembled beneath them, as if the very planet itself was angry. Yao Rai's lungs burned as she ran, her heart pounding in rhythm with the thunderous footsteps behind them. The colossal entity, half machine, half monster, was now fully awake, its hollow eyes glowing with the light of something ancient and unfathomable. They had disturbed something they should never have touched. Her communicator crackled, but it was still nothing but static. The Dominion fleet in orbit wasn't responding. Were they ignoring her? No, that didn't make sense. More likely, the planet's unnatural energy field was disrupting communications. Or worse, maybe they were already gone. Behind her, Krall stumbled but caught himself. "Commander, what is that thing?" Jikas, his usual arrogance gone, gasped between breaths. I don't know. There's no record of anything like this in Dominion history." Yalarai gritted her teeth. Then history is wrong. The monstrous war construct. Because that's what it was. A weapon left behind by whatever civilization once ruled this planet. Let out a deep, horrifying hum. It wasn't a growl. It wasn't a roar. It was a sound of power charging. And then it fired. A pulse of blinding white energy erupted from its core, racing outward like a shockwave of death. The city's ruins disintegrated in its path, stone and metal melting into nothingness. "Move-y!" Yao Rai screamed. They dove for cover behind a collapsed tower as the energy blast ripped apart everything behind them. When the dust settled, half the city was gone, reduced to ash and glass. "This thing, it's a walking extinction event," Krall gasped. How the hell did it stay hidden for so long? Jikas wiped dust from his face, his hands shaking. The same way the humans disappeared. A deep silence settled over them. Yao Rai's mind raced. The humans. Everyone in the Dominion believed them to be a legend, a forgotten race that vanished from the galaxy centuries ago. No records, no ruins, just whispered stories and old warnings about a species that once ruled the battlefield. What if they never truly disappeared? What if this machine was theirs? The thought sent a cold chill through her veins. A loud boom echoed through the sky. Yao Rai's eyes snapped upward. Something was coming. From the blackness of space, tearing through the clouds like fire and vengeance, a fleet arrived. And for the first time in Dominion history, it was not theirs. The shadows around them, the silent watchers, reacted at once. They knelt, not in fear, but in reverence. Krall's voice was barely above a whisper. What is happening?" The monstrous war construct turned its massive head, as if sensing what had just entered orbit. Its ancient frame shuddered, its energy core pulsing brighter, preparing to face what was coming. Then, the first ship broke through the atmosphere. It was massive, larger than any Dominion vessel, black as the void, with glowing red markings along its hull. More followed behind it, hundreds of ships, forming a fleet that should not exist. Jikas fell to his knees. "No," he whispered, "that's not possible." But it was, because on the side of the lead warship, written in a language long thought dead, was a single word, a name. Earth. Yao Rai's breath caught in her throat. The legend was real. Humanity had returned. The sky burned. Yao Rai and her squad watched in horror as the massive black warships descended, their engines roaring like ancient gods awakening. The Dominion fleet was nowhere to be seen, either wiped out or fleeing for their lives. But it wasn't just the size of the ships that terrified her. It was the markings, the bold, unmistakable word written in a language once dismissed as myth. Earth. Krall staggered backward, his eyes wide. This isn't real. It can't be real. Jikas, usually full of arrogance, could only stare, his mouth dry, his body frozen in disbelief. Yao Rai wasn't sure if she was breathing. The humans had returned. For centuries, they had been nothing but whispers, a legend of a warlike species that had once ruled the battlefield, and then vanished without a trace. The Dominion had scoffed at the idea, calling it fairy tales from a primitive age. But now, their fleet darkened the stars. The war construct, the colossal machine that had awakened, let out a low, vibrating hum. Its massive frame shuddered, sensing the arrival of something it recognized, something it was built for. And then it bowed. Yalray's breath hitched. Jikas fell to his knees. No, that means. The machine belonged to them. A deep, commanding voice crackled through the air. It came from the lead human warship, projected loud enough for every survivor to hear. This world is ours. You were warned. The voice was calm, but it carried an undeniable weight. A voice that didn't beg, didn't threaten, because it didn't need to. It was a simple statement of fact. The shadows that had been watching, the silent figures hiding in the ruins, began to rise, and for the first time, Yalray saw them clearly. Humanoid, tall, strong, eyes that burned like embers in the dark. They were not ghosts. They were not myths. They were humans, and they had been here all along. Krall reached for his weapon, but Yalray slapped his arm down. "Are you insane?" she hissed. "Do you have any idea what we're facing?" But it was too late. Krall fired. The plasma bolt flew straight at one of the humans. He didn't dodge. He didn't even blink. The moment the energy bolt touched his armor, it simply vanished, absorbed as if it were nothing. Then, with inhuman speed, the human moved. One step, then another, and then he was right in front of Krall. Krall tried to raise his weapon, but the human grabbed him by the throat and lifted him off the ground like he weighed nothing. "You think we forgot?" the human asked, his voice as calm as before. "You think we forgave?" His grip tightened. Krall choked. Yalray raised her hands in surrender. "Stop, please. We didn't know." The human's eyes flicked toward her, glowing cold and merciless. "Didn't you?" Another tremor shook the ground. The war construct let out another deep hum. And for the first time, Yalray noticed something horrifying. It wasn't just activating. It was calling. Above them, the human fleet responded. The sky split apart as even larger ships emerged from hyperspace. Warships the size of cities, each one bristling with weapons that defied logic. Yalray felt her stomach drop. The Dominion had always believed it ruled the galaxy, that its technology was unmatched. They were wrong. Humanity had never been destroyed. They had been waiting. And now, they were done waiting. The sky was no longer a sky. It was a graveyard in the making. Yalray stood frozen, her breath shallow as hundreds of warships descended, their dark metallic hulls blocking out the stars. The Dominion fleet, once mighty, once feared, was now scattered wreckage, burning in the void. The humans hadn't just returned. They had never left. Jikas stumbled backward, his face ashen. This isn't possible. They were supposed to be a myth, a warning from an old age. They were a warning, Yalray muttered, her voice hollow. And we ignored it. The largest human warship loomed overhead, a silent titan wrapped in the darkness of space. It bore no markings except one, a single word, written in an ancient human script. Earth. A voice thundered through their comms, deep and composed, yet filled with an undeniable finality. You crossed the line. Now you will understand what that means. Yalray didn't have time to process the words before the bombardment began. The first impact was like the wrath of a god, a massive energy beam cutting through the battlefield with terrifying precision. It didn't just destroy Dominion ships. It erased them, leaving nothing but burning remnants drifting in the void. The second strike followed, then the third. One by one, the remnants of the Dominion fleet vanished, their screams lost in the endless abyss of space. Jikas fell to his knees, shaking. We were the rulers of this galaxy," he whispered. "We had dominion over all." "Not anymore," Yalray said. Because now she understood. The humans had never been wiped out. They had never been weak. They had simply waited. Waited for the moment when the galaxy had forgotten. Waited for the enemies who had marked their world as forbidden to become comfortable. waited for the perfect time to remind everyone. Humanity was never gone. They had been in the shadows, preparing, watching. And now, they had returned. The Dominion had spent centuries thinking itself untouchable. But as the human war fleet moved forward, as the final remnants of resistance crumbled before their might, one truth echoed through the stars. This was not just a counterattack. This was retribution.